Welcome to the Foolery Show, your dose of positivity for those dreary Monday morning blues, where we take topics and try to make them sound positive. First up, the American Civil War, fought between the North, or the Union, and the South, or the Confederacy, resulted in the deaths of 620,000 to about 750,000 soldiers. It is the deadliest military conflict in American history and accounted for more American military deaths than all other wars combined until the Vietnam War. War is always sucky. It always destroys lives. It always, just destroys societies. And civil wars, in some opinions, are the absolute worst because you have your own people fighting your own people. But what it shows is how important it was. Why are this many people going to die fighting each other? There must have been an important reason. There must have been a reason why. Because why kill this many people in the first place? Why have this many people die? Why have a civil war? Why not just, chew the fat? There must have been something important here to gain. And the reality was slavery was wrong. Despite it being a solid economical point, it was wrong. And it costed a lot. And a lot of things came out of that. So it was more for the fight of the soul of a country. And some may say it was worth it. Following up from that, the Confederacy lost the American Civil War. A nation losing a war always seems one-sided. I mean, typically the winners write the history, and that's just how it is. But ultimately, the Confederacy losing the American Civil War basically destroyed a lot of the South. There's a lot of damage, a lot of things to repair. But ultimately, this led to the integration of a better economy, a better societal structure, a more connection to the actual Constitution, which all the country agreed upon. So maybe it was a good thing. Sometimes losing is a good thing, so you realize how bad it was. A lot of people like to glorify the Confederacy without looking into the details. That may have been a great thing for the people and a great thing for the future of the people to lose. Because winning would have just made everything worse. Next up, California was the third state to enact a sterilization law and coercively sterilized about 20,000 Americans. California was considered the epicenter of the American eugenics movement. So, eugenics as a whole has a very troubled past. The idea is simple, where basically you have people with horrifying diseases or some genetic defects that you do not want to progress in society. And rather than taking a rough approach, which is killing those individuals, you just prevent them from further computing, to the gene pool. However, this can be taken to unordinary extremes. And coercively sterilizing people is extremely wrong. Especially when it's, coerced, right? And in fact at all, or some kind of law. But I think what was important about this was the blend of science and medicine, right? From olden time, people didn't believe in science, people didn't believe in anything. But what this made was a huge jump forward for was there is some science behind it. There is some justification. It's not necessarily just, Jim Crow, or not necessarily just, you look a certain way. There is some scientific basis. There began to have some kind of scientific basis in law. So I think this is a huge step forward in history for integration of science into law, which, it benefits everyone. However, it may have been in one of the wrong areas and hurt many people. But ultimately, a huge step forward in terms of integrating, human-made science instead of random beliefs into law moving forward. Next up, the Rockefeller Foundation, which was involved and helped finance the American eugenics movement, helped found the German eugenics program, and even funded the program that Joseph Mengele worked on before he went to Auschwitz. Now, I don't know if there's anything great to see about funding a eugenics program that eventually helped Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz and theorize the whole German kind of race hierarchy plan. But I think what is positive to say about this is, hey, there's at least, a billionaire foundation trying to help science progress across the globe. That we're not just funding things to boost our own stocks and our own personal interests, but maybe we're just trying to help, move medicine and science across the board. Instead of to a lot of people nowadays and prior that just, are in the manipulation and make as much money game. All right, diving more into government policies, the CIA program MK Ultra sought to figure out if mind control was possible. Many of the program's subjects suffered psychological torture ranging from electroshock to high doses of LSD. Due to the top secret nature of the program, it's impossible to know the human cost of the experiments, but a number of people died and lives were permanently destroyed. I don't think much can be said for the actual damage done and whether it was right and wrong. I think that is an incalculable amount of damage, and to your own people as well. So it goes beyond, the morality and ethics of the situation. But what could be positively said about this is that there was a drive to see if people could be mind controlled. And granted, it's unethical to, randomly sample these people, but it was done in a way to see if you can control people and protect against it. So, granted, the effects are horrifying. The science behind it was to check to see how far you could go. How far you could go beyond the would and more of a could. And the result was, of course, unsuccessful. And the damage was great. But, this is the whole greater good of the country, seeing if you can protect your own people. Maybe it was done in a horrible way, but the idea and the whole mentality was, how can we better protect our people? Even if that means hurting some of our people. Last up, the Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in U.S. history. And in 1932, deep into the Great Depression, some 15 million people, more than 20% of the U.S. population at the time, were unemployed. Now, economic downturns, by their nature, are crushing and crush massive parts of the population. Not all, but large parts of the population. And granted, some may say the economy itself is kind of not a real entity. It's a real entity for some people that need to work every day to eat. And I think that this was a great turning point where you could see the greed of the rest of the population kind of just take. And this is the result of that take. I think sometimes you have these dark moments in history, and it allows you to define what kind of people you are. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn, and 15 million people were unemployed. But the fact that 15 million people could be employed, and there's no mass, starvations, and there's a huge government economic policy to do that, and it's not just, like Stalin's 5-year plan where people just die. This is an issue. We're not hiding this issue. People don't hide it in U.S. history. This is a well-known thing, and this is a well-known characteristic of the United States. And I think that because this is well publicized, well documented, what was happening, I think this is an astounding movement of, a lot of people did a lot of wrong things, but also that there's a lot of good people trying to help out. Even if the worst happens, people are still there to help out. And just like that, that's the end of our show. Remember that there is almost always a positive perspective in life. And any comments, questions, or suggestions for the next show, please send an email to thefooleryclub@gmail.com.